Hi, I'm Judith. I'm a Canadian and I'm over 80 years old. And today I'm going to continue on the series I've been doing about decision making because decision making is really key to creating a happy and successful and fulfilling life. And that's what this channel is all about. Before I begin, please listen to the end if you can. Please like and subscribe. I'm trying to make them a little bit shorter, but I'm not doing very well with that. At any rate, um, yeah, so I'm going to talk about decision making today. I have talked in the past sessions about um, simple decisions, consequential decisions, and complicated decisions. And today I'm going to talk about when simple decisions end up having, you know, they seem to be a simple decision, but they really have either they have consequential results. Because those are kinds of accidents that happen in your life. And I guess the lesson in all that is that you never know. Any decision could be a really important decision, and you don't know it at the time. But not much we can do about that. Every time you get into a car and to drive somewhere, you could end up, having an accident that you're just driving to the supermarket down the road and you end up having an accident that changes your life forever in some way or causes you uh, big financial things or just a lot of insurance messes and horrible things or whatever. So every decision has the potential to be really consequential and maybe even to be to become very complicated. And there's no way around that, really. Um, but sometimes a simple decision can turn out to be really good, and I'm going to talk more about that today. Um, about a decision in my life that was just a sort of fast, simple decision that turned out to be really important for the course of my life in a ways that I could not have imagined. And I love those kinds of decisions because you only see their importance looking back. Um, didn't see it at all at the time. Um, but before I do that, let me say that sometimes, even if um, a simple decision turns out to really change your life in huge ways, it isn't necessarily all bad. And I'm going to talk about, for that, my example is Rick Hansen, who is a Canadian hero. He was he was a teenager, an active teenager. He played sports and things. And when he was, I don't know, 17 or 19, late teens, he decided one day to hitch a ride in the back of a pickup truck. And the truck was in an accident, and he ended up losing the use of his legs. He became paralyzed, I don't know, from the waist down or something. So he could no longer, he was in a wheelchair from then on. And I heard him speak recently where he was accepting a reward. An award, and he said that he's often asked if he ever regrets that decision, and he actually doesn't because he went on. If you don't know his story, he went on to raise huge funds. He followed in the. I think he followed Terry Fox, or he did it before. I'm not really sure if he was before or after Terry Fox, another great hero from our time. But he raised huge amounts of money by going across Canada in his wheelchair. I think it was afterward. And he has been an advocate for disability rights and so on. He's had a tremendously successful life. He married, he has children. He had a really successful life, all from a wheelchair. And so that is really possible, and he doesn't regret that happening. He said he would still get into the pickup truck today. Um, it isn't necessarily the end of the world if a simple decision turns out to have effects that at the time seem really awful. Um, okay, but on a happier note, well, his is a happy story, but I want to talk about the course I took in grade 9. I took a typing course in grade 9, and it turned out to likely be more responsible for my success in life than any other single course I ever took. I went to university. I did honors English. I did a lot of history courses, minor in history. I've studied all kinds of, I took programming courses to learn to be a programmer. I took all kinds of things that launched me into different careers, but nothing was as important as that typing course. Now that was just a simple decision. It was grade 9. I had 3 options of courses I had to take. I think I chose one was French, one was music, and I don't even know if French was, I think French was an option, and one was music, and the third one was typing. And the reason I chose typing was because I really wanted to take Latin, but Latin didn't start till grade 10. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll take typing. It'll be a kind of easy course and might be useful, and I'll take typing. They call it keyboarding now, but it was typing then. Um, and I took that course, and then in grade 10, I stopped taking typing and I started taking Latin. Um, I needed that. Ultimately, it turned out for my teaching certificate. Well, it turned out I needed it for the type of teaching certificate I thought I was going to get uh, in a double major of English and history, and then it turned out I didn't need Latin at all. I needed French. And anyway, that's another story. So, but anyway, there I was taking typing. So I didn't learn everything about typing, and I didn't really get to be incredibly fast, but about 30 words a minute, maybe between 30 and 60 words a minute. I can do all the letters, all the alphabetical letters. I'm just not so good at reaching the numbers or special symbols. I haven't memorized where those are, so I usually have to look at the keyboard to find those. Um, so I started, how that turned out to be good for me, I'll tell you, I'll name the reasons here. So first of all, um, I think I really believe that in high school I got better marks because I typed my papers. I typed all my essays that I had to write. Now they were done on an old manual typewriter, and they had typing errors and things X'd out and whatever, because we didn't have eraser fluid or whatever in those days. Um, but but it did help because the teachers could read my papers more easily than perhaps my handwriting, although my handwriting wasn't bad. And I think that they just gave a more professional look to my papers, and I believe that helped me in university as well, because I did that in university. Excuse me. So then the next thing that happened was when I was about in grade 12, or maybe even grade 13. Back I had started smoking at the end of grade 11 after my first boyfriend broke up with me. I tell that story another time. Um, but and I worked really hard at smoking, so it didn't make me feel ill. A dogged persistence misapplied. Um, but yeah, so I grade 12 or grade 13. We had grade 13 in Ontario at that time. High school was 5 years. I'm not going into that story. So um, it was either in one of those years that I had a chance to become a stringer, I guess you'd call it, the contact for our high school for our city newspaper. So each Friday there was a column in the newspaper from each of the high schools. There were 3, maybe 4 high schools at the time in my town, and we all got to put our little notes about activities and things that were going on or things that had happened that week. And I got paid 5 cents an inch for that. Maybe that was how I learned how to, use a lot of words. 5 cents an inch. So you wanted more words rather than fewer words. And so if I wrote 7 inches, I got 35 cents. And large pack of cigarettes cost 36 cents, and my parents didn't know I smoked, so I had to figure out that money for myself, although I got a small allowance every week from them. I think I got $1, and I had to put 25 cents into the church collection. At any rate, so 36 cents would get me so I could actually support my smoking habit at that point. And I got that once a week. And so it started me earning a little bit of money, which was neat. And then, as I said, typing helped me in university with my term papers. I think that I got, with all my essays, I think I got better marks because I could type. And finally, at that time, in university, after my third year and after my final year, before for the couple of months before I went to the 2-month teacher training course that I was doing, I worked on campus at the university. I was at Queen's University in Kingston, and I worked on campus for an English professor. There were two or three of us who were doing this work, and the English professor was doing a bibliography of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, famous English poet, and he was using the university computer to do it, which was quite a big computer. It was about the size of, I don't know, um, uh, it was about 6 feet long, 4 to 6 feet long, and about 3.5, 4 feet high, and it sat in an air conditioned room. And if I recall, it had something like 400K of memory. It was really tiny by even the standards of your phone today. At any rate, yeah, so I was hired by that English professor to, and I could stay in Kingston for the summer instead of going to Toronto as I'd done the two previous summers. Oh, where I work as a typist. My first 2 summers, I worked as a typist for an insurance company. So I earned my summer living typing. And so that really helped. Um, and that was because I could touch type. Um, and I made $50 a week, $45 a week the first week, and $50 a week the second year. Um, and on that, I could pay my tuition and my books and buy some clothes. So, and live. Okay, and pay my cousins with whom I lived some room and board. So that was good. I'll talk about that in finances, I guess. At any rate, little segue there. Sorry. Um, so, yeah, so I earned my living in those 2 summers, and then the last 2 summers there, I was hired as a key puncher. Um, a key punch was the thing you had to use a key punch machine to make these little cards that had little punches in them, and that was where how the data was input, and then it was fed into the machine, and the machine read it. Um, really old fashioned. This was 1966 and 1967, the summers of. Um, and they had discovered that it was easier to hire English majors who understood bibliographical entries and who knew how to type to use a key punch machine. Much easier to learn how to use a key punch machine if you already knew how to type. And we had to do bibliographical entries. We had to go to the library and then code the entries on sheets of paper and then come back and punch them up. And it was easier to do that than to train typists to do bibliographical entries or key punchers to do that. So I worked for 2 summers doing that. It was a really fun job, actually. And because of that, I learned something about computers, which I knew nothing about. And I learned, and I, at one point, and I think in the second year, I got interested in this thing called programming, which was what, um, which was how the computer ran. And so I talked to one of the three programmers, and she showed me a computer program, and I have no idea now what language it was written in. It was all pretty Greek to me, but I got the idea that there was this thing called programming, and I thought that was interesting. So then I went and did my teacher's training for a couple of months, and then I went out teaching school in a Northern Ontario town, and in a collegiate institute there. I did really well there, but uh, I took at night school at the college, the local college, I took a course in programming, not for any career reason. I just thought that was interesting and I'd like to know something about it. How I could manage to do, I was only 22, I guess, that I managed to do that and teach for the first year, and with all the lesson preparation and everything that you have to go through being a first year teacher, honestly, it was a lot, but I did. I took this course in Fortran programming, and I learned that I had a logical mind and I was pretty good at it, actually. And so when my teaching career came to an end, and I talk about that in another episode, I thought, maybe programming would be something I could do. And then I went back to school and I took computer programming. I went back to a trade school and took that. But if I had never taken typing, I would never have been hired for that key punch operator's job. I would never have learned about programming, or not at least at that time. And it would not have occurred to me to take a course in that in my first year. And that was what gave me the thing that led me to my next career, right? Because then I became a programmer analyst, business systems analyst, so I had a whole very successful career in that, and then ultimately combined that with my former teaching experience to become an instructional designer and and to become a corporate trainer. I didn't need typing for corporate training, but I sure needed typing for instructional design. And it turned out when I was working as a programmer, I was also I would have to code my things and key punch them initially. In the first years of programming, I was key punching cards, and then we got little devices that we could type. But again, I had an advantage because I could touch type, and the keyboard was laid out the same way as a typewriter. So it always gave me an advantage in my career that I could touch type quickly. Certainly when I became an instructional designer, it did. It really helped. If I knew what I wanted to say, I could just type it out. I didn't have to be hunting and pecking for keys. It made it much faster. I had a really successful career. I made a lot of money. I sat at home in my house coat and and made I don't know, $100 an hour or something, which back in the 1980s and 1990s was really good money. So I think it's still pretty good money today. Um, so in fact, I just I can't tell you how much that typing course changed my life. It really influenced my life in really big ways. And that was just a simple decision I made because I couldn't get into the Latin course for another year. It's one that turned out to be really a good decision. Um, so, and I believe that life usually hands most of us some of those opportunities, some of those things that if we reach out, if we explore, if we try new things. I mean, it also helped that I went and took a programming course after my first year of university, and I think that was also like a simple decision that I did. I didn't do that because I thought it would lead to a new career. I did it because I just was interested in it. So I think that if you follow your interests and you learn a little bit about a lot of things, that can really help you in figuring out who you are and what you want to do, and it may give you options for the future. Um, so, yeah. So I guess my take on that is decisions may not turn out as you expect them to be, but they can sometimes be much better than you expected, sometimes much worse. But you will learn from all of them. You will learn from what happens with all of them. I mean, many of our decisions are just in, not have no consequences at all. What I eat for dinner tonight is not likely going to affect the rest of my life in any significant way, or even even that day in any significant way. Once in a while it does. So that's it for today, and this is number 4 in the decision making playlist. So I do have a playlist that I've set up that as these get published, they go on the playlist, and you can go back and listen from the start to the whole thing about decision making. Um, and until the next time, um, do your best to make good decisions, especially if you're young, because that can set more courses for your life. But at any age, I still have to make good decisions today, and I'm over 80, and they can still change my life in many ways for the best, I hope. So take care until the next one.